Yo, what up? This is D Knight, and you're listening to the Pardon the Interaction podcast. My oh my, we've had so much going on. For starters, in case you missed it, we've got a new addition to the Pardon Pie family, Tara Dublin. Make sure you go follow her on Twitter at Tara Dublin Rocks. Also, pick up a copy of her book while you're at it. Make her day, The Sound of Settling. A very fun and interesting read compared to the things we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, we're heading toward the do or die time for the 2024 election. Go ahead and hit up JoeBiden.com. Get that man like $1 a month or something. Help his campaign staff up and get prepared to try and save our democracy. And make sure to grab like one other person you know and tell them about the podcast. Make sure they subscribe and tune in every single week. We got a lot of things coming up for you this year. We need all the support that we can get. So if you do your part and help us grow our audience, we'll do our part and help elect Joe Biden in 2024 and save American democracy. And this is the Pardon the Interaction podcast.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so let's continue to honor our man,
right.
Joseph Robinette Biden.
Again, so this is
Is it Robinette?
Robinette.
Raisinette.
So as opposed to, being a real downer and talking about actual important news, depressing, disheartening, insanity that we're dealing with as far as politics is concerned, we just wanted to celebrate our man Joe and all his great accomplishments, everything he's done in the last 2 years. It's been fucking incredible. I don't think he gets enough credit, even from his supporters, and certainly not from the media. I hate to say it, guys. Y'all do a terrible fucking job. Like I'm a regular ass dude with the podcast, and I gotta hype this man up, like. And you're the mainstream media and you pay no attention to everything this dude's done. Shame on you guys, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. Pardon Pod supports Joe, even if the mainstream media doesn't.
It's almost like they did it on purpose with an agenda. But anyway.
All right. So let's just pick a handful of some of Joe Biden's biggest accomplishments.
Hashtag Biden wins.
Hashtag Biden wins, baby.
We got the CHIPS Act. Some of you may remember that during the height of 2020 pandemic, we set off a chain reaction of shortages of chips manufactured in other countries. And what did Joe Biden do? He brought the manufacturing back to the U.S. So yeah. Per his speech, we're going to prevent a future shortage on necessary goods because we'll have the chips manufactured here. Suck it, China.
Yeah, $52.7 billion to build microchip related factories in America. Let's say over the past couple of years, you wanted to purchase a new car. Oh, you may have realized there was a shortage. Well, it's not because there were a shortage of cars necessarily, but because we were due to supply chain limitations. Thanks to the way China was mishandling their COVID policy, I'd find it rather difficult to get a car or things like other electronic devices, computers, smart appliances and whatnot. Joe's trying to remedy the fucking problem. Passed this huge bill. Also sanctioned a lot of the chip manufacturers in China, preventing U.S. intellectual properties from being involved in those companies, practically shutting down, China's chip infrastructure overnight. I mean, the man is doing his best to make sure America gets back to its position as the number one supplier in that department. So yeah,
this also
Joe.
Touches me as a New Yorker because one of the largest investments went to revitalizing a defunct IBM facility in New York. So it's going to add a lot of jobs. It's
high paying, well compensating jobs with benefits.
To this area. So thank you, Biden.
Yeah, Carol, as a New Yorker, I mean, it's nice to see Biden's legislation hit home. All right, next on the list, I think I'll go with President Biden single-handedly reuniting NATO, making it almost as strong as it's been in its entire history, while also convincing multiple countries in Europe to, provide their support to Ukraine in fending off an invasion by their unruly neighbor, Russia, for sure.
We Western blocked them, sort of.
Well, one of the things you can be certain of is that had Trump somehow managed to be reelected, well, item number one on the agenda was to pull the United States out of NATO, thereby rendering the alliance obsolete. And that might sound like hyperbole, but you can Google that. That information is readily available. Like that was on the list of things to do, to weaken NATO, help strengthen Russia. But instead, Biden brought us all together. You have Ukraine's back. And then I guess one unanticipated consequence of that, not to say that the United States is using Ukraine as a proxy to fight a war with Russia, but if there was a positive benefit from providing aid to Ukraine, it would be that by using a tiny percentage of our military budget to help supply and support Ukraine, we've basically helped decimate Russia's army to such a degree that it might not ever recover. And if the amount of losses that they've had in a fight against Ukraine, I mean, there's no way that they could ever pose a threat to the rest of Europe, at least as far as their standard military is concerned. Yeah, they're equipped with numerous nuclear weapons, and that's always a potential threat. But as far as their army,
they say.
Well,
we're to believe that.
Yeah, well, look, we know they have weapons. We don't know what state they're in, but yeah, their army is decimated. So shout out to Biden for uniting the world, uniting Europe, if not the world, in solidarity against Russia's advances. And people try to, I don't know, make some sort of implication that Biden's potentially starting World War III. No. You know what would have started World War III? Let's say Putin just ransacked Ukraine in their own version of their blitzkrieg, taking over Ukraine. And now they're on NATO's fucking border. You'd have Russia's army right there. And then if their attempt to overthrow Ukraine's government had that been successful, Putin probably would have felt empowered to spread his menace even further. And Biden put a stop to that and potentially put a stop to World War III. Carol, let you take the next one.
Great.
I mean, we don't kiss this man's ass enough. I'm sorry. Like, the motherfucker's been incredible, and it just goes unnoticed somehow. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so he passed, we passed a historic infrastructure bill. It's the largest since Eisenhower's highway expansion.
I don't even know what year that was.
Eisenhower times
30 years before I was born, maybe. I just, good God.
Yeah, so that again, I can see it benefiting me and average Americans already. Just from my area, I've seen so many projects begin. And what he had said about lead pipes, I was like, this is appalling, and that's so sad that we're still. He's like, well, this is a great project because now kids will have water that's clean instead of poison. Like,
yeah, like America, like we don't realize how difficult it is for some communities just to have access to clean drinking water. It's fucking insane in 2023. Well, this is a project that many presidents have attempted to address. None of them have been able to provide a solution. Biden got the shit done. Our bridges crumbling. It's one of the calling cards of Republican campaigns. They talk about our crumbling roads and bridges. Well, guess who's getting that shit fixed? President Biden, who's Democrat. Just keep that in mind. Sorry, I needed a beer. When you see all these construction projects taking place around the country, roads, bridges, broadband infrastructure,
Like the parkway near my house doesn't flood anymore because they raised the roadway.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Joe Biden. You the man.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, next up, let's see what we got here. I guess I will go with the American Rescue Plan. In case you don't remember, when Biden took office in 2021, the United States was in the middle of a crisis. You may have heard of it. The coronavirus pandemic had basically crippled the nation's economy, if not most of the world's economy. Biden took over in the middle of that disaster and passed the American Rescue Plan, which included COVID and economic relief, sent out millions of stimulus checks that helped the unemployed get through the turbulent economic times. It extended unemployment insurance. That probably saved, tens of millions, if not 100 million people from bankruptcy, losing their homes.
Is that where they did the child tax credits as well?
Yeah, also expanded the child tax credit.
Lowered child poverty
by 50%, something unheard of at the time. Something that people, look, it's an impossible fucking accomplishment. One thing Biden doesn't get enough credit for, it's fucking insane. I have to keep saying this. You have to remember that when Biden took office, the fucking country was a disaster. It was a mess. He took over a shit show, as is typical when a Democratic president takes over after a Republican administration. And to get from where we were to where we are now is a fucking miracle. And I just hope people stop taking that shit for granted, man. We got to pat this down.
It took us from Mad Max to Idiocracy. I don't know. 2 movies I haven't seen in their entirety.
Oh, that was really good. That was really good. All right, Carol. Any more for you?
Yeah, well, COVID deaths are way down. Joe Biden helped create access to vaccines for hundreds of millions of Americans which helped get people back to work.
Again, economy flailing. I can't point that out enough. The economy was dying. We people don't remember this, but the vaccines were developed during the end of towards the end of the Trump administration, the end of November, early December.
And Trump was already announcing things like he was going to withhold it from people of my state out of spite. So unless my governor apologized to him. So who knows if I would have gotten it?
No, that's entirely fair. If you think about it, Biden rolled out, 50 million vaccines in the first couple of months of his administration. During Trump's administration, they had only rolled out, maybe 1 million shots. And that's because instead of trying to address the fucking pandemic, one of the reasons why Trump lost the 2020 election in the first place, he was busy planning a fucking coup. Oh, look, we eventually got the insurrection in there somewhere. The erection. I can tell what's on my mind. Yep. All right.
It's the sweater.
And,
it's got sheep and ducks on it.
All right. Ty is wearing, a very pleasant version of an ugly sweater that's non-Christmas related. There's sheep.
I'm Carol.
Ducks. What did I call you? I'm high. Oh no.
Ty was wearing a lovely tank top with boobies in it.
All right. Well, look, Ty is all boobs. Anyway. Yep. Sorry, Carol. I didn't mean to call you Ty.
That's okay.
I don't even know how to.
Am I all boobs now? Oh, damn. Still no. So yeah, we got past. Well, I say we got past COVID. I hold some reservations there that we won't discuss.
Okay, look, let's be frank. The pandemic's not over. Most of us were just well, fuck it. It is what it is. The difference being, you and I, and probably most of our listeners, decided to be as responsible as we could until we got vaccinated. And then, as responsible as we could, circumstances aside, until recently when everyone just gave up. But look, at least we took our fucking shots. I got as many shots as I could, and I'm trying to get another one as soon as they get that one ready. I'll take all the shots. Give me all the vaccinations. Yeah. So I guess before Carol, before you give your final Biden accomplishment, I will give mine. I think one of the best things Biden has done in terms of his presidency is that he kicked Trump's ass out of the fucking White House. That was going terribly awry. If anything, you could say he's, by winning the 2020 election and his performance as president so far, he's damn near on a path, thanks to their terrible behavior, to ending the GOP as we know it. Like, in principle, Lincoln's party is dead. It no longer resembles the party that was founded in the 1800s. In practice, it still exists, but if we keep this up, we can eventually get rid of these terrible people, the lies and the hypocrisy. That shit will go. We'll set that shit on fire. Maybe a new conservative party will rise from the ashes. I don't know. But what Biden did is he saved our fucking democracy and possibly the entire country. Every idea you have about democracy, freedom, patriotism, go America, like, it might not be in existence if not for this guy. I guess depending on the way you look at it, by saving America, this dude saved the whole goddamn planet. And thank you, Joe.
I mean, it sounds like hyperbole, but if once America slips into fascism, I mean, what the hell is the rest of the world going to do?
Yeah.
When they're going to go against our super fascist army? I mean, they are. Yeah.
All right, Carol.
Yeah.
Biden's biggest accomplishment in your mind.
Well, first, wait, real quick. Not to diss this one, but I had the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, which is really great.
You know what, Carol? Now that you mention it, let's just go down the list real quick. The American Rescue Plan, check. Inflation Reduction Act, check. We rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement, check.
Woo!
Reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, check. And if you were unaware, Biden was one of the original authors of the Violence Against Women Act in the 90s during the Clinton administration. $1.2 billion infrastructure bill, check.
Woo!
Uniting NATO in defense of Ukraine and potentially preventing World War III, check.
Woo!
Completely decimating Russia's army, check. Put Europe on a track to be independent of Russian oil, check. Postal Service.
I messed you up by not saying woo.
You got me. We need to drop like ta-da. Postal Service Reform Act, check. Student loan debt forgiveness, check. While simultaneously reducing the deficit, check. Ended the war in Afghanistan with minimal casualties, check. Even though Trump's administration basically set Afghanistan up to fail. Created more jobs in 2 years than any president has done in 4. And unemployment is down to a 60-year low, check. Use this position to bring black women to the forefront. We have a black vice president, a black secretary, and the first black Supreme Court justice. Check.
Wait, he passed the Electoral Count Reform Act. We skipped that one.
Oh, sorry.
The good one.
Basically making it more difficult for people to try and steal our fucking democracy away from us. Check. Protected and codified same-sex and interracial marriage. Check. Created access to vaccines for hundreds of millions of Americans. Check. Passed the CHIPS Act. Check. Passed the first major gun safety legislation in decades. Check. Killed the leader of Al-Qaeda. Check. And he passed legislation to improve health care for our veterans who have been in terrible shape and have been victims of burn pits and such. Check.
Yeah.
Give that man some applause. Toss that man.
God bless the troops.
Get that man his flowers.
Veterans.
Amen.
Yes, and so I don't know if this counts as a Biden win or like an accomplishment, but does having a son who has an enormous penis that triggers your enemies an accomplishment? What do you think?
As someone who has a mediocre penis, I would say, yeah, that's quite the accomplishment.
Man, they're so angry about Hunter's giant dick.
Well, it makes them feel emasculated, and I totally understand. They have this idea in their heads that, like, oh, well, Carol, you're familiar with their perception of liberal men.
There's a beta, the beta cucks.
Yeah, they think we're all like, soy milk latte drinking, tiny dick, whatever the fuck. Yeah. Yeah. So congratulations, President Biden. Your biggest accomplishment is your son has a gigantic penis.
And we assume it came from his daddy.
We can only assume that you're packing as well, sir.
God bless you.
Salute to you, President Biden. Carol, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, hearing the State of the Union last night made me feel pretty good. Hearing how even opponents, not like the televised opponents, but normal people, quote unquote, from Twitter, etc., seemed, as I said before, a little aggrieved with how much they didn't dislike the speech and found it relatable. So I like to think that's like broken through a little bit, like a little tiny sliver of progress was made yesterday. And whether or not that's true, I mean, hope is a powerful thing, and change.
Hope is a hell of a drug. I'm Rick James, bitch. Sorry, Dave Chappelle show. Oh man, even though Chappelle been tripping lately. Anyway, aside from that, sorry, Carol.
No, it's good to have some hope and be encouraged. It was very encouraging, and damn, I was impressed. And
same.
That days like yesterday, I was proud to be an American.
Oh my God! I can't believe you just said that.
I was
proud. It sounds so cliche.
I know. I was proud, except for moments when like people were, dressed up in their fur shawls and screaming and howling at the president. But whatever, that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's unfortunate that whack jobs on the right felt necessary to dress up like a fucking balloon and lose their mind, and how, it's totally wild. Which is sad to
say. How about you?
Well, it's sad to say that even with the lack of decorum on display yet at the State of the Union address here, we still are, slightly more civilized than others. Anyway, yeah. So for me, well, actually, I'll save my closing thoughts for the next time we're together, and instead I'll give a sports ball moment, or rather, sports ball minute of the week.
Generic song about sport ball.
Carol, you
non-legally copyrighted song.
You can completely tune out here. It's fine.
I made it bad. I know it was a bad song.
No, you're done. You can just tune out, check out for the rest of the podcast. I got this.
It was just a legally distinct anthem about sport ball.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about any copyright claims being filed against the Part of the Insurrection podcast. As much effort as we put in, potentially getting sued, we've yet to avoid, or will yet to be subject to a lawsuit. So kudos to us. So if you were unaware, the other evening, on the eve of the on the night of the State of the Union address, one LeBron James clinched the all-time scoring record in the NBA. I don't know how many of you out there care about sports. If you are a huge sports fan, just forgive me. There's no way I could probably discuss this topic with accuracy as it deserves in an entire episode, let alone a little 2-minute rant. But bear with me, and if you're not a sports fan, all right, you can cut the podcast off. Carol is closing her computer. Thanks for all your support, Carol. So if you're unaware, the record all-time scoring in the NBA had been previously held by one Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It had been a long-standing record. To be fair, was born in 1984. You do the math on my age there if you'd like. Kareem has held the record since 1984. So it's been quite a long-standing record. It's one of those things where you kind of take for granted in sports, and I'm going somewhere with this. You're like, oh, well, just you eventually don't even really appreciate how unapproachable the record has been. It just never occurred to anyone that someone could break the record. We've had a bunch of great players, since the 80s. You know, we've had the Michael Jordans of the world. Karl Malone's done a pretty good job of, you know, trying to approach that record, even though he fell short by quite a bit. Not that, you know, I necessarily warrant Karl Malone as one of the greatest players ever or anything. It's more like a really tall James Harden. But that record has stood the test of time until one LeBron James just recently passed it. Like, one thing I think about is it's so funny. Me and LeBron James are the same age. So in some ways, I have grown up with LeBron. It's kind of like looking into a reflection and seeing how, what one can do with the right amount of dedication and hard work, what you could accomplish. I obviously took a different path, not physically gifted as LeBron James. But anyway, one of the things I remember as a teenager is that cover of Sports Illustrated, The Chosen One. And, you know, thinking about all the pressure on a young 15-year-old from Ohio, some of the rough and tumble parts, for a guy who was born in that position, look at the circumstances he was raised in and go so far beyond that to the point where not only did he meet the incredible expectations placed upon him, he surpassed them by far. It's inspirational shit. I don't know how any of you feel about LeBron. Again, I'm sorry, this is probably longer than a sports ball minute. You know, and there's a lot of arguments about who is and isn't the best player. I'll cut to the chase. I'll just say, I believe that MJ is my guy, probably best player I ever seen. But given what LeBron's done over his career, I would say that he's probably the greatest player I've ever seen play basketball. Overall accomplishments, I mean, you got to hand it to the guy. The longevity, the number of finals appearances, the obstacles he's had to overcome. The league's better than it's ever been. Just obstacles Jordan never had to overcome. I just tip my hat to the guy. So watching that and just sitting here thinking about, you know, all the accomplishments one person can have in their life as I'm getting older. One of the things I hadn't really considered until recently was like legacy. What is it you're leaving behind? And I'm not so audacious as to compare myself to the LeBron Jameses or Michael Jordans of the world. Of course, that ship has sailed. Thing is, you know, we all have things to provide. There are things we can all dedicate our time and energy to, things that we can apply ourselves to possibly make a difference in the world, things we can do, improve our situations and the situations of others. You know, we might necessarily be able to, you know, break NBA scoring titles, but we all have something to contribute and something to leave behind, something to say, hey, we made an impact on the world, however small or large that may be. And we can't all be LeBron. We can't all be Mike. We can all contribute our unique gifts to the world and leave our legacy and see the great things that other people have done in their lives and use that as inspiration. And I hope you can find some inspiration from that, find some inspiration from this podcast, find some inspiration from us, and use that to go out into your day-to-day lives and make whatever change you can and leave some legacy behind for yourselves and the people around you. And that concludes this episode of Part of the Insurrection.